Hi, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of Healthy Habits Now, the podcast about practical tips and insights on healthy eating and mindful living. I'm your host, Imelda, and today's episode is about how I started my health journey. So, how did I become interested in healthy eating and mindful living? Well, it all started with the pandemic. Before the pandemic, I was quite careless about what I ate, especially since I was depressed about a lot of things in my life due to unemployment, underemployment, and feelings of being trapped. However, once the pandemic lockdowns happened, I was forced to stay inside for long periods. I could eat takeout, but that required money, especially if I was eating out more than once or twice a month. And I didn't have that much money due to not having a career, just random jobs that constantly disappeared. As a result, my family and I decided to cook all of our meals. At first, the shift towards eating at home wasn't so great. I thought the food was bland and boring compared to what I could have outside, but eventually I got used to it, and we found ways to make our food taste better. I also realized that my palate had changed. Before, I was constantly craving extreme flavors, such as extreme spiciness and extreme saltiness. But after a month or two of not eating out at all, I was no longer craving those flavors. 6 months after the lockdown started, I lost 10 pounds. Now, 3 years since the lockdowns and my dietary changes, I'm over 20 pounds lighter than I used to be. I'm also more energetic and don't constantly feel the urge to eat snacks or keep my mouth occupied with interesting flavors. Clearly, something about restaurant food was fattening. The pandemic has also taught me about the importance of balance in all aspects of my life, not just food. During the lockdowns and the huge changes in society and the job market that have happened since 2020, I've become more confident, happier, and satisfied with myself. Before the pandemic, I was incredibly depressed about my underemployment. As a law school graduate with poor grades and no connections, I couldn't get a full-time career level job. And this didn't last just a few months, but over 2 years, from mid 2017 to the end of 2019. During this period, other than going to work sporadically, since many of my jobs were on call only and applying for other jobs and gigs, I didn't do much. I just waited for the next step of my life to happen, which seemed more and more impossible as the days and months passed by. When was I going to get out of this? I wondered. When was I going to have a stable job that paid a livable wage so I could finally be financially independent? That was the crux of the problem. The less I did, the more I stagnated, and the more I fell behind my peers. People always tell you not to compare yourself to others, but sometimes you have to when you notice a pattern of constantly falling behind. To make myself feel better about my stagnant life, I retreated to the comfortable world of writing and art, which, by the way, you can check out on my main Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok account, Fortunist Games. Instead of building my career, I focused on these distractions so I could feel better about myself. Now, there is nothing wrong with creating stories and art. I still love doing it, and I am very active in the literary community. In fact, I'm the editor of a digital literary magazine that I founded with two of my friends, The Unconventional Courier. Link is in the description. But the problem was that I was avoiding what I had to do in real life to prepare for the future. Was my joblessness realistically going to last that long? 2 years seemed a lot to me, but in the long run, it isn't really that much. I knew people who were jobless or close to jobless for 5, 10, even more years. And, eventually, for most people, it does end. So I had to think about that, but I didn't think about it. I just wanted to lose myself in the digital world of creativity and think of myself as a creator. And there was a little bit of hubris in that as well, because I was like, well, maybe I don't have to think about it. Maybe I'm special. Maybe I can make it and be the next J.K. Rowling. Of course, that never happened. But when you're not healthy, you're more prone to delusional thinking. And I think I fell into that. And part of how I eventually overcame these kind of thoughts and escapism and not facing reality was to structure my days better. Instead of waking up whenever I wanted, I set the alarm at 8:30 as if I was still going to school or had a full-time job. I then exercised daily for 10 minutes before tackling work, if I had any work, or if I didn't, I would just look for jobs online. I would then look for things to improve on, such as my SEO or social media skills, my video editing skills, and other things that I could expand into, because I was starting to realize, starting in 2020, that law was probably not the right career for me. I did not do well at law school, and I did not do my due diligence when I was at law school because I didn't network with anyone. Due to having bad grades, I felt like I didn't belong. And then I just made a bunch of excuses not to network with people, which is really, really important in law. And eventually I just gave up, and I realized that, I learned a lot of things in law school, but I couldn't build a career that was in law. So I eventually had to move on from that. And I should have realized that earlier, but all those distractions and all those escapism was holding me back, and I had to get rid of that to live healthily and more confidently and move on with my career and my life, and realize that my life isn't just creativity. There's more to it than that. And it's not just going to work or trying to find work, and then when the day's done, just immersing yourself in creativity in these fictional worlds. That doesn't help you move forward, and it could actually make you go backwards. And that's something I had to learn the hard way these last couple of years. So what's the purpose of this podcast? Admittedly, I'm not a behavioral scientist, therapist, or nutritionist, or even a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner like my dad. However, I am undertaking this journey to learn more about healthy habits, not just in terms of mentality and thinking, but also in terms of food and exercise and how to build them. And I'd like you to learn along with me. Feel free to leave comments in the description so we can all learn together and build a happier and healthier future together.